Director Brems,
Present.
Director Cardenas,
Here.
Director Daly,
Here.
Director Gettle,
Here.
Director Keegley, Director McKelman, Director Peterson, Director Prokopis,
Here.
Director Silvestrini.
Finally. Thank you, everyone. Is there any public comment this morning, online or in person? Not seeing any. We'll move to item number 3, which is to tentatively accept the 2025-2026 UPD budget.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. Board members, you should have received yesterday the updated tentative budget from the one that was presented on the 15th, I believe, or last board meeting. You also have included in that the chief's letter for the tentative budget. I just want to go over it really quickly. Each slide is not significantly different. We did change it. We're removing Slavisa from our documents now and just putting in cities and towns. Okay, since really we are now working with the individual cities and the individual towns and not Slavisa. So that is reflected on the first page. And Linda, we would really love to get a picture of you. We could. Okay, all right. Then moving on the organization, again, we haven't changed that. We have increased it by 7.25 employees. Go back one, Marcy, go back one. Thanks. Oh, you're right. You are right. Okay, so again, the changes that we made from last year are that we have added 4 new sworn positions, 1 in professional services training, and then 3 in Kearns.
Could I interrupt for just a sec?
Yeah.
So the board has already adopted or accepted the tentative budget. The purpose of this was just to deal with the question of the change in the allocation formula. So they're not re-accepting it because the statute requires that it be done in the first meeting in May. So I just wanted to clarify that. What we're doing here is just supplementing this with the updated allocation formula. So I don't want there to be confusion on that point. They've already accepted the tentative budget.
Right.
Okay.
Right. And I think on the second page, I did put on there that that we did meet the requirement that this was presented to the board on the 15th and the board did accept it at that time. So again, we haven't had any changes from the last time that we presented it. The organization has remained the same with the increase of the 7.25 employees. And then you've got the organization chart, and the organization chart shows you what the changes are. When we do the final budget, all of these changes will disappear and it will just be the organization as it is. But we wanted to make sure that you saw where the changes occurred within the organization, okay? And then again, by each of the precincts and the cities where the changes were made, again, all of those red marks will disappear and you'll just have the final numbers in the final budget, okay? Again, the budget contains what we discussed prior with the 5%, with the 2.5% market adjustment and the 2.5% cost of living. And then all of the rounds of cuts that we made in the first round and in the second round. If you'll go to, oh shoot, I don't have pages on this. You can find this, Marcy, keep going. Keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going. Right here. This is the changes that we made from the budget that we presented on May 15th. So the shared service formula now does reflect the 3-year rolling average for cases, and it applies across the shared services expenditures and revenues, okay? Final staffing changes have been made and updated, and that resulted in an additional $86,935 worth of savings. The impact to each city and town varies on where the changes were made. Some saw a small increase, while others saw increases. At the final meeting, I will show I have included it in my slide, what each of those changes were. I'll read them to you here quickly. For Mill Creek, that was a decrease of 0.67% or $106,800. For Holiday, it was a 0.07 increase or $5,162. Midvale saw a 0.35 decrease or $48,039. Kern saw a 0.53 increase for $57,757. Magna saw a 0.05 increase or $5,049. White City saw a 0.02 decrease or $453. Copperton saw a 0.32 increase or $995. Immigration saw a 0.3 decrease or $74, and Brighton saw a 0.02 decrease or $465 for a total of $86,935. Okay. The biggest impact, the biggest changes resulted because of the movement from the employees from one precinct to another or retirements. We had several retirements just recently. And so what will happen is you'll see when one position moves to another, the salary may be similar or close, but the benefits change significantly. You'll have some that have that don't take our health insurance, and then when they get replaced by someone who does have that health insurance, it will have an increased impact on your precinct. Vice versa, if you had someone that had insurance and now they are leaving and you're replaced with someone that doesn't have insurance, that's a decrease. The salaries stayed pretty even because when you're replacing one sergeant with another, they're at the same level. But you will have changes if you move one officer from one precinct to another because not all officers are paid the same rate. So that's where most of the changes came from in this budget. And then again, most of the rest of the remaining presentation just shows where we removed Slavisa from there. So the change to the total budget, the tentative budget summary. So now the total budget is $66.4 million. That is a $1,819,000 decrease from the preliminary budget. The city's share is $38.93 million, which is 58.62%. And the cities and towns share is $27.47 million, which is 41.38%. The total increase overall was $2.746 million. And you can see on the right-hand side there what makes up where most of that increase came from. 1.372 came from the precincts and 1.374 came from the shared services. The breakout underneath shared services shows where those increases came from. So you've got 39.78% came in wages, 2.69% came in overtime, 20.15% came in benefits, 0.68 came in travel and training, 3.6% came in fuel and vehicle maintenance, and then 33.10% came from operations. So overall budget rates, they are now, the overall budget increase is now 4.32%, which is down 1.34% from the PBIM. Holiday will use $100,000 of their fund balance toward their membership fees. Again, the shared service formula does reflect the 3-year rolling average. And so with that, members' individual rates are as follows. Mill Creek is at 2.64. Holiday is at 6.51. Midvale is at 3.46. The cities and towns overall is at 5.13. Kearns is at 5.67. Magna is at 5%. White City is at 1.09. Copperton is at 13.25. Immigration at 2.27. And Brighton at 7.02. And I believe that completes the budget. Again, we're still waiting for finalization of the contract for the new building. And once we get closer to the final budget, we should be able to calculate our fund balances. and get a more accurate figure of where we stand and what we'll have in general fund and in the precinct funds. I also, after the packet went out, I did email you the line item Cassell report for the budget, which you can look at. Our printer's kind of on the fritz, but also I didn't want to print out a bunch of these because if we do have any changes between now and the final, they will need to be we will need to update this again, and then we'll have the final complete packet for you for the final budget. Any questions?
Thank you. Do we have questions?
I don't have a question, just a comment. I don't think it requires discussion, but before we go to a public hearing, I know that Chief Mazarin is wanting to look at, I think Chief, you're wanting to look at the formula again. We talked about considering that, the distributions for next year. And I was just talking to Debbie about this a little bit, and I don't think it requires discussion on the board, just a comment from me, because I've had a question about moving to this more surgical distribution of the personnel costs to the precincts. You were talking about whether or not somebody has benefits or not, and seniority or not. It would cause me to question, like, are we going to get in a situation where precincts are actually looking at somebody's seniority and their benefits package? You know, that would concern me, but more just how much work that is generating for staff to have to go in and individually calculate somebody's staffing distribution. And so I just think that maybe as we move into next year, I would refer this down to, I guess, benefits and comp might be the place to do it, to take a look at that and work with staff to say, how much work has this generated? Is it the right way to do this? Or should we go back to more just averaging what the costs are? Because to me, it should be the same. But anyway, I don't want to discuss it right here. I just want to make a recommendation that we refer those two issues down to benefits and comp or the appropriate subcommittee as discussions before we move into next year's budget session.
I would agree with that. And I would think, some of those things even out, average out over time. I mean, to get too granular about it, A, may not be worth the time, and B, defeats the purpose of having a single department.
Yeah, and I really appreciate those comments. And just so you're aware, and of course, everything we do will bring back to the committees and the boards, but 3 projects that I intend to do after this budget is passed is, one, we're going to create I'm a big fan of checklists. I love them. We're going to create a budget checklist that we're going to use every year to make sure we get everything covered. Second thing is Debbie and I are going to sit down and look at actuals versus averages, what you're referring to. And there's distinct pros and cons to both of those methodologies. We're going to re-examine that. And we're also going to look at the formula. I'm going to bring together a small team to look at the shared services formula and play with that a little bit. I think it's imperative to the growth of this department that we address that. And I can give you more specific examples in the future, but I'm going to put some ideas together and bring those all to you for discussion and analysis. So, and to the specific subcommittees that are over that, but that's kind of what the plan is moving forward.
Mr. Chair, I would move to open up the public hearing for consideration of the FY 2025-2026 tentative budget.
I'll second that. Jeff Silvestrini.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Is there anyone that would like to speak at the public hearing?
Mr. Chair, I'd move to close the public hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Could we have a motion for approval of the tentative budget resolution?
Happy to make, Rob Daly, I'm happy to make a motion to approve the 2025-2026 tentative budget resolution 25-05-03.
Second.
Any discussion? We need a roll call on this.
Director Brems,
Yes.
Director Cardenas,
Yes.
Director Dali,
Yes.
Director Gettle,
Yes.
Director Keegley,
Yes.
Director McCalman, Director Peterson, Director Prokopis,
Yes.
Director Silvestrini.
Yes.
That's unanimous. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, just to clarify, so under Utah Code annotated section 1113-511, once the board adopts the tentative budget, which it did last time, it can continue to make changes in that until it approves a final adopted budget. So just so we're timing okay, we did adopt it last time. We are adopting changes to that tentative budget now for storage and consideration by the public until we have a final budget adopted in June.
Thank you. Okay, our next item of business is a discussion approval of lease agreement. Chief Nazrin.
This has
Harry.
been an adventure. And I'm going to turn it over to Harry to explain what has happened and but we're making progress.
Every lease agreement that, particularly one of this term, involves some back and forth, and we got started late on our back and forth. But I would say that since we discussed this last time, we've made a great deal of progress. And most, if not practically all of the suggested changes that we had sent to Granite as of our last meeting have been adopted by them. There are a couple minor exceptions and one potential issue that I'll outline before recommending approval anyway. But to cover this, I sort of outlined in a background the basic issues that this is a 20-year lease with 2 5-year options that are by mutual agreement, not something exercised of right for UPD to have this facility. There's a minimum 15-year period, which we're guaranteed the facility from what was called a force majeure clause. After that, if there is a damaged school nearby or something that makes it inoperable, the district has the ability on 1 year's notice to call back the school for that use. They have no intention of reopening this as a school. It's one of the oldest schools out there, and for that reason, they don't want to reopen it at this time. They're not planning on reopening it, but in case there's some extraordinary need based upon something that happens to another nearby school, they reserve the right to do that. We will still get a 1-year notice at that point. The monthly rent is $6,378.54, and that can be increased by 10% every 5 years, so about a 2% increase, but it's not annual. It's 10% every 5 years. And until then, it's a flat rate for 5 years, a flat rate for the second 5 years, a flat rate for the third 5 years, subject to that escalation. UPD is agreeing that it will pay all maintenance on the building. So that would include everything from, of course, the costs of maintaining the building, costs of maintaining the grounds, costs of anything that's not considered structural. But in this case, I believe that would include roof and other types of, if we have to re-roof it, it would be on us. The UPD's looking at a list of what maintenance has cost, what utilities have cost, and we'll be budgeting that additionally as part of the rent. The rent is less than what we're paying now at the Salt Lake County facility on what was a bargain rate anyway. So it's a very good rate, which is part of the reason why Granite wants to shift all other costs to us. They're giving us an excellent rate. And we've agreed to that. Some of the changes, like I said, the initial lease provided that they could call back the school at any point on a force majeure, and we wanted to at least ensure that there was a minimum period which they couldn't do that, so that the money we're putting in to harden the facility and to deal with the building to store SWAT vehicles would be sufficient time for us to at least justify the expenditures. The lease has a lot of provisions in it that deal with questions that probably won't apply, but there's an old saying in leases that nobody looks at them other than the term and the amount until something goes wrong, and then everybody drags a lease out to see who's responsible for it. So there are some provisions in here, like I said, that have us paying costs. If the building is leveled, we don't have to rebuild it. That's on the district. If like something happens, an earthquake or something, that's not on us. But the maintenance costs are. They've got a 1-year period to rebuild it for our use. After, if they can't do it within a year, other than some period of time for additional construction, we can get out of the lease. Now, if the building's leveled, I think that those discussions will happen sooner as to what's going to happen. But again, when you deal with these type of issues, you have to try to anticipate what could go wrong here. And the only thing I could think of would be an earthquake of significant impact that may not be our only problem. But they have been cooperating with us in terms of also minimum insurance requirements. We have sent to them plans for what we're going to do to the building for both construction as well as fencing. We have not heard back, which is why there are a couple of blank spots under Section F. We've been told that there is a good chance we'll get that sometime this week, but we don't have them as of now. However, I know that at this point they are actively reviewing those through their department architect to get back to us if there are any issues. In the meantime, we are awaiting reviewing bids that we've gotten to work on the plans we've got to try to speed this up. If they do make changes, we would need to rebid those plans. Nonetheless, let's hope that everything we've submitted is clear. There was initially some documents that were reviewed that were preliminary plans, not final, and that has slowed down that process. Not sure how that happened, but because we sent them the final plans about 3 weeks ago. So they're trying to work with us. I would say that they have been cooperating significantly with us in the last 2 weeks to try to get everything done. So even though we don't have the plans approved at this point, I think we're hours or days away from getting that done. With that in mind, I still think that I will recommend approval of the lease. That's the only hesitation I have, is I wanted those plans approved as well. They are not, but I don't want to continue to wait on this because there are other things we're authorized to do as soon as the lease is approved, including installing shelving for the property and evidence, moving forward with other aspects of this that don't involve the construction plans. And that just means moving our stuff in. So even though the lease starts July 1, they're allowing us to essentially effectively start moving everything in as soon as both this board, the Granite Board, and the lease is signed and all parties approved. So with that, I'm going to recommend approval, even though there could be a delay in the actual construction. We plan on moving in regardless, and we will come up with contingency plans if we need to delay the construction. The big thing right now is the fencing, which is pretty straightforward and simple. Put a fence up so there's fencing around the whole facility. And that can be done. I can't imagine how that would be a problem. And I also think since they're aware of the construction plans, I don't think it's going to be anything significant if there is a change. And if there is, we'll deal with it. But so that's about the only hesitation I have anymore, is we still don't have the plans approved, but everything else in this lease, they pretty much accepted our changes. We retained Jason Hawkins, who is a commercial real estate specialist at Spencer Fane, formerly Snow Christensen Martineau, to go over the lease as well. He made some additional suggestion and pretty much what we have sent them, those changes have now been adopted. So with that, I'll answer any questions the board has, and if there's questions you feel need to be in a closed session, we can do that too.
Mr. Chair, Jeff Silvestrini, I'll make a motion to approve Resolution 25-05-04 of 2025, a resolution of this board to approve the lease agreement, subject to command staff approving the minor changes that have been described here today to finalize the lease agreement as soon as those things can be concluded with the Granite School District.
This is Carolyn Kegley. I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Mo-
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. And thank you for your patience and thank you for your input. And also thank you for communications from a couple of you that I think got this done.
Okay, we have a couple of meetings coming up. UPD swearing in and promotion ceremony on Tuesday, June 17th, here at Mill Creek City Hall. The next UPD board meeting is Thursday, June 19th, here at Mill Creek City Hall. Is there any other business?
Yes, Mr. Chair. I've had some communications with Salt Lake County, and we're getting close to a point to evaluate what might be a departure agreement. There's nothing that I've seen back, but I've been told to expect a response. I would probably like to set a committee meeting of our committee that deals with departures. I don't know when yet because I have not seen their response, but at some point I'd like to maybe review that with the input from the board members on that committee. And then we can decide if this will go before the board in June or it won't be ready to go before the board in June. But at least review what we get back so there's board input in that as well. And I'll just say this, when I do get something from them, we'll have probably a follow-up discussion and then we'll set a meeting of that committee. So it's just to put it on the radar of the board. We'll put out some kind of a poll on a meeting date and it's mostly for input, not for a recommendation yet to the board. But if there is a recommendation, we'll figure out if that needs to go before budget and finance as well.
Thank you. We're adjourned.